Is the Politics for Real podcast. I'm Brianna Campbell, your host. This episode is entitled Accountability in Foreign Policy. Millennials, think of a time when you witnessed a political or public figure behaving in a way that was contrary to who they were. Now, think about how that influenced your perception of them, right? Well, the President of the United States at the United Nations General Assembly meeting in September made threats of aggression as well as of a trade war. Now, we as a generation should be concerned about the foreign policy of the Trump administration, not just because of how it reflects on us as a nation, but how it influences the attitudes that public foreign nations have of us as as a country. I mean, who is going to hold the president accountable for his words and actions if not his own administration? If not his own administration, then who? I mean, if not them, then who? So apparently, what's astonishing actually are the threats that were made toward North Korea. Trump apparently threatened to quote unquote destroy the country and their 20 million inhabitants. I mean, who says things like that? And what's even worse, the comments that he makes about their leader, leave a little to be desired. So all in all, it's not looking great for the United States as a whole at the meeting. And in general, Trump really behaves as somewhat of a bully, towards Iran. At the meeting, he references the 2015 nuclear agreement that was made with Iran, and he kind of boasts of his decision to repeal this particular agreement, but unknowingly or perhaps knowingly that was a major violation of international law. But yet he decides to make that statement anyway. I mean, not to mention the implications that particular ban, that repeal of that agreement has on the sanctions, guys. So if you don't know, I'm going to give you like a brief overview of what's at stake for Iran. Okay, and I don't want to bore you with it because it's very complex, but I'm just going to give you a few points. Okay, so the first point, the first thing you guys need to know, the first thing you should know, if you don't, is that one of the components of these sanctions actually is a ban on Iranian oil exports. Okay, that is one of the ways that they fuel their economy. Secondly, the sanctions call for an exclusion of Iran from the international banking system, guys. Okay, so to me, so far, it doesn't really seem like he's trying to manage properly. He's properly managing his relationship with Iran. That to me suggests that it's an attempt to cripple their economy and really deprive them of any independence that they have. Their regime is really going to put them in a downward spiral, if you will. That is exactly what they're doing. And if we are going to be a leader, why would we want to put Iran in a position where they can't properly support themselves, where they cannot properly function? That is exactly what we're doing, you guys. That is exactly what the United States is doing. And Trump, he boldly announces it at the meeting. Okay, so we have a long way to go there with our relationship with Iran. But moving right along, our ongoing trade dispute with China. Okay, so we have imposed $250 billion ban on imports, Chinese imports, guys. That is the single underlying factor for the controversy, this trade war with China. That is the underlying factor. It's these billions of dollars that we put on their imports. Guys, what do you think about that? If you were trying to, have a healthy relationship, that is not a friendly gesture to me. It doesn't suggest, it's not a friendly gesture. It doesn't appear to be a friendly gesture. Let me just repeat that. Let me let that sink in. $250 billion, to me, that states that you don't want them to have any part in your economy. And he's letting the world know, you guys. He's letting the world know. He's making it very public that he is attempting to also literally cripple their economy, just as he did with Iran. Okay, and here's the mind-blowing fact, if you will. Just recently, actually, the Chinese political leaders released a statement that they are willing to cut the import tariffs on imports and on many of their goods. And so it's like, what is the United States going to do? They just said that they're willing to cut imports, tariffs on imports on many of their goods. And here you are just insisting that they abide by these just ridiculous sanctions that you guys have. I mean, United States, we have to do better. Trump, if you want to improve your relationship with China, let's work on these billions of dollars that you guys have on their imports, okay? Because the tariffs that you guys have on them right now, it's just not looking okay for the country, okay? And so in Latin America, guys, the Monroe Doctrine is a centuries old doctrine, and it states that, for those of you who do not know, it states that the United States rejects the interference of foreign nations in our affairs. You know, just in general, European interference, we reject that. So, you know, and many people think that he's kind of referencing, you know, many people say, many of the leaders at the meeting kind of thought that it was a reference to the Chinese investment and trade in the region, but it was mainly in reference to the Latin America intervention. But what is, you know, to me, there appears to be somewhat of a double standard in play, right? Because at the meeting, literally in that same breath, Trump states that it's literally okay for the United States to intervene militarily in their affairs and as well play a major part in their regime change. Yet he publicly cites the Monroe Doctrine, which is his way of stating that he wants Latin America to have no part in our own affairs. Yet again, he's not showing himself friendly. What's that saying? If you want to have a friend, you want to have friends, you want to make friends, you have to first show yourself friendly. He's not doing a good job of that. Right now, it's suggesting that we're willing to shut the entire world out. And not only are we willing to shut these countries out, we're going to make your lives so much more difficult with our billions of dollars in tariffs. We're going to cripple your economies. We're going to declare war on your countries. And it's too much, guys. Millennials, I want to hear from you guys. How can we influence? What should the president do at this point? I mean, he's already made it known, okay, that he is not willing to work with China. He's not willing to work with these other countries. And what should we do? Guys, I want to open up a public debate. I want to leave room for debate. How can you guys, I want you guys to relate. I want to hear about it. I want to hear your experiences. How does this relate to your experience, your college experience, you know, your everyday experiences, what Trump is doing, and you know, how can he improve this? You know, what are some policy opportunities? You know, what are some policy initiatives? Young people, this is a time for you guys to open up, and I want to hear from you about what you think. What do you guys think about this? Because to me, it's not an adequate portrayal of the United States foreign policy. It's not. Okay, so at that same meeting, guys, Trump, he denounces socialism. Now, I'm going to read the quote, and then I want you guys to think about a lot of the socialist agenda, the agenda of the socialists in America, and then how that bridges a divide.